Good morning and welcome to this sacred time, this community consecrated by our presence and our commitment. I'm Vanessa Cowie, and I'm the worship team leader and your worship associate today. With great pleasure, I welcome you this morning to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. Know that you are welcome here, whomever you are, whomever you love, however you vote, whatever your race, age, class, or ability, you are welcome here. Whatever spiritual paths you have traveled, whatever beliefs you have known, if any, you are welcome here. For our faith calls us not to a particular creed, but to a covenant to honor every person's worth and dignity. UUTC's mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. Our announcements. UUTC's Next Normal seeks to bring us together safely. We wear masks in the building except for those speaking from the pulpit. We use clipboards to sign our names and telephone number in case contact tracing becomes necessary. The choir has been COVID tested today before they warmed up, as have Reverend Bob and I. And we have an added air handling system in place which circulates fresh air through our heating system. If there is a deep joy or concern in your heart to share, please type it in the chat box. Soul Matters will be online only today at 12:30 due to the weather. If you don't have the link used in past months, please reach out to Reverend Bob and he will provide it. There is a march and observance scheduled in Brevard tomorrow for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Those who wish to march will start out from Bethel A Baptist Church at 5:30 and proceed to the courthouse. The program at the courthouse begins at 6 p.m. Seminary for a Day is a special online opportunity for Unitarian Universalists on Saturday, January 29th. This year's spiritual theme is entitled, Doing the Inner Work of Racial Justice. The keynote speaker is Reverend Abhi Janamanchi, who serves as the senior minister of the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in Bethesda, Maryland. He describes himself as a Hindu Unitarian Universalist and says that his Unitarian Universalism makes him a better Hindu. See the UU Update news email that came to your inboxes on Friday morning for the link and any other announcements. We enter into the spirit of worship with music. Please listen to Donam Nobis Pacem.
Pacem, pacem, dona
We'll open with timely words selected by Reverend Bob Renjilian and written by the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom, who is the former Worship and Music Resources Director for the Unitarian Universalist Association and has served congregations in Yarmouth, Maine, and Brewster, Massachusetts. Reverend Wickstrom says, "One snowflake is a marvel, a miracle. 4 snowflakes, 5, and the kids begin to run around in the yard. 100 and the cars start slowing down. 1,000, 2. You can see where this is going. We are strengthened in coming together, joining with others, blending our efforts with those of the Unitarian Universalist congregation in the next town or the next state. Together, we are more than we could ever be alone. One congregation, one UU, is a miracle, a marvel. As an association, we can help to create a wonderland, a world blanketed with love and justice, understanding and hope. Come, let us worship together this snowy morning." Now we move more deeply into our worship service with the lighting of our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Don't you just love snow days? Our chalice lighting inspiration comes from Robin F. Gray. We join our voices in a holy communion of mind and heart, dedicated to the promises that bind us in compassion one with another. In this hour, we light the flame that signals our intention to find the sacred in every living thing. Our first hymn today is number 16, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." We believe joys are magnified and sorrows eased by sharing them in loving community. We now pause to honor milestones and to lift up those who need our healing thoughts. Meanwhile, if you are watching this online, please share your joys and concerns in the chat function. And although Reverend Bob and I cannot see those as we lead this ceremony, we will light a specific candle to recognize online sharing. We light a candle for those workers on the front lines during this pandemic: sanitation workers, delivery workers, healthcare workers, janitors and teachers, taxi drivers, and food servers. Those people who have often and continue to risk their lives to keep us safe during this current and all past waves of COVID-19. We light a candle for those receiving medical treatment or now waiting as procedures are postponed during this time of hospital overload. We light a candle for our UUTC members, friends, family, and neighbors of all ages who have caught the Omicron variant. May you have a swift recovery. We light a candle for those milestones you have shared in the online chat. And this is a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and milestones that remain unspoken at this time. Let us pause to reflect on the joys and sorrows we have just heard and all those we carry in our hearts.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean. I've got love like the ocean in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul.
Thank you. I know we're not singing out any children, waving them off to the CRE classes this morning, but maybe as you're gathered there watching with cups of nice warm cocoa, you will enjoy the wisdom for all ages that I had prepared for this Sunday. It's a story of Chang Su as explained by Soon Teo online. How do you treat others? Asked the master to the new class. Aha, treat others as you would want to be treated yourself, the disciples shout, almost in unison. The master, nevertheless, did not seem to resonate. Without commenting on what they say, the master goes on to tell the story of Shuangzi. Once upon a time, there was an extraordinary bird who flew up from the sea and landed on the countryside of a small kingdom. It was large, beautiful, and elegant. People simply called it the sea bird. The king soon got wind of it and ordered to have it brought to the palace. The king was astounded by the beauty of the bird. He liked the bird so much that he decided to give it whatever royal treatments he himself had been bestowed. In addition to an elegant abode in the palace temple, he had his musicians play the best music for the bird's amusement, and his chefs prepared royal feasts for its consumption. The seabird, unfortunately, was not at all impressed. On the contrary, it was thoroughly confused. It was frightened by the sound and depressed by its captivity. Despite the king's best effort, it refused to eat the fine meat and drink the vintage wine. And after 3 days, it died. The king was upset. He honored the seabird with the best music and feasted with the best food. What he had gotten, however, was a melancholy and unappreciated guest. What have you learned from the story of the seabird? The master asks the class. And the class is in total silence. Sighs the master. The king's good intention is poisonous to the seabird. He's so naive, not knowing that the seabird is happy only if it's allowed to live its own nature. So treat others as you would want to be treated yourself, said the master. If you don't like others to impose their will on you, don't do this to others. Each time as we have the opportunity to meet for worship online or in person, we have the opportunity to be reminded by your minister, who loves to say this, generosity can be a spiritual, moral, and ethical discipline. I highly recommend it. We are a community dedicated to doing good in this world, and your contributions support our mission. We give with intention. You can use the links online and make a donation with the click of a mouse on our website or on the Realm online portal. If you choose to give extra for an added good cause, the pull-down box will allow you to choose this month's special collection organization, the Worldwide Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC for short. Know that your gifts are received with gratitude. All that is given in love we receive with great joy, and we say, thank you. The reading is by the Reverend Kendall R. Gibbons, who has been minister of All Souls Unitarian Church of Kansas City, Missouri, and a past president of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, and a former co-dean of the Humanist Institute, among many other contributions to our movement. Here are Kendall's words. Our communities of memory and promise are founded upon covenants because we all need a defense against the impulse of immediate feelings that challenge our best intentions. It is necessary to be reminded from time to time of what you said you were going to do and what you really want over and above the lure of momentary comfort. Covenant is a word for the solemn promises that counteract the randomness of a future in which anything and everything is possible. By committing us in advance to certain relationships and values, we do this because what we build with intention and even with difficulty is more satisfying in the long run than the pleasures that we happen to encounter. We do it in time-consuming rituals invoking powers that we scarcely know how to name because we are seeking some way to give our lives the density and dignity, the depth that we suspect with longing might yet be possible. What might yet be possible. My sermon this morning is entitled, Good Intentions Must Be Lived, because I do believe it's not enough to have a list. If we're all to live with intention, there's the challenge of bringing our thoughts into actions. This is the Martin Luther King weekend, a holiday. We think of holidays as a time off. How is it that the school systems already knew that there would be a potential snow day? We are blessed with the weather in helping us step back and relax, unless you're the one who goes out and shovels. The Martin Luther King weekend, I have said in the past, and I say again now, with good intention, must not be a day off. It must be a day on. I'll say a little bit more about that as we move through this service. But let's think for a moment. Think for a moment of all the many things we have promised ourselves. Can you make it 16 days into January and still remember what your New Year's resolutions were? I hope so. It's only been a couple weeks to hang on to them. The other thing that I hope too is that we haven't forgotten the reasons why we exist as a congregation, for the spiritual growth and development of all who might come to us, that we aren't forgetting about our hopes and dreams of an expanded campus, that we might welcome more children and adults, people of all ages into our midst. I hope we haven't forgotten what many Unitarian Universalists vowed in past elections, that we would make sure that voting rights are there for all who have those rights, and that the votes are counted, and that our election process is not upended by chaos or insurrection. Maybe we had intentions to do more with the Black Lives Matter movement, to be involved Did we at least write a check? Did we write letters to elected representatives? Are we engaged at this moment to live up to our intentions? As our principles say, well, we work with the idea of the worth and dignity of everyone, the interconnected web of which we are a part, and the use of the democratic process here in this congregation and throughout our society and the world at large. When we click on the button for the special fundraiser this month for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, when we show up tomorrow, either to march or for those who are differently abled, those who show up directly at the courthouse for the Martin Luther King Jr. observances, do we bring our whole selves and our sense of intention, or are we distracted by whatever other news items might be coming up? I would hope that we are all dug out in time to have a day on for Martin Luther King Day. And if we're not, may we have power or candle power enough to read, link, click, and sign whatever online letters or movements might help continue Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, or our Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County ideas of a better world. It's interesting, throughout the world there are all sorts of observances going on. In the Baha'i faith, this is the weekend of World Religion Day. And here in the United States, it sometimes gets moved off of this day so that the emphasis can be on Martin Luther King holiday and observances. But in what way, too, have we intended to be part of a world in which we're part of the force of that interdependence, of that support for spiritual growth, of the ability for us and others to practice religion freely? I read something that was forwarded to me about the ways in which we're kind of fallen apart in society, and linked to the many comments on that online article, one of which said, yes, we don't go to church anymore. I would like, as a minister, to believe that the intention to go to church leads naturally to a better world, but it doesn't always. Our intentions are not just that we show up at a courthouse for an observance of one of the great civil rights leaders. Our intentions are not just that we show up for church on Sundays when the doors are open. Our intentions are that we do. We are going to do something about whatever is going around that needs to be done. And yes, I believe that some of that means that we listen. We listen and understand each other. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "People with good intentions but limited understanding are more dangerous than people with total ill will." On this, I might beg to disagree. I happen to think people of total ill will are actually extremely dangerous. I believe that we have watched people of ill will do quite a bit of damage and have left us with systems of imbalance and injustice, with fears, with ripple effects. But I do understand when the Reverend Dr. King said that people with good intentions but limited understanding are more dangerous. That maybe is where that story comes in from our wisdom of all ages. A king who says, I love great meat and wine and music, so I will give the same to the person I honor, or in this case, the great seabird. To not know who we are walking with in this world, to not understand our environment, different species' needs, or to not know the ways in which folks who are bound by injustices, those who have been historically marginalized in our communities, may not want to be held captive to a king's whim, may want to be able to live freely in a world and go about being who they are without molestation, without their environment, their lives, their rights truncated. Maybe, if we listened and understood, we might be better in our good intentions to do good. I agree with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. And so what I have just said there and tied in with our story is a piece of that. Our excellence comes from a deeper understanding of the diversity. On this World Religions Day, sometimes that means going online and saying, what are we learning about other people's religions and the way they approach things? How are we to make this world a better place or serve others if we ourselves are so ignorant of the religions of this world? Now, I know as Unitarian Universalists, you've had an introduction from this pulpit, not just by me, but others, of quips and sayings and words of wisdom and meditation classes and adult religious exploration. All these things may have been available to you, and yet there's always room for more. To be undertaking things with painstaking excellence is not to rest on what we've known in the past, as much as we might say, but we bought the entire Encyclopedia Britannica back in 1979 when our children were little so that they could complete their homework, and we have all that we need to know since then. Even what Martin Luther King Jr. knew in his time and day has changed and advanced. The dream to go forward needs those of us who are willing to sharpen our perceptions of the world, soften our approach to others who may be in some way different, and understand ourselves as we better. We are the ones, all of us, we need one another to survive. We are the ones who, with the best of intentions, must do. The way in which we do it, the steps we take, must be those of always understanding that we listen to the voices of those marginalized and bring them forward. Sometimes I believe Unitarian Universalists are good at that, to bring forward the quotes, to know the poets, to buy just the right books. But Highland Bookstore right here, buy locally. To do just the right things, to educate ourselves and then maybe be able to speak with others when we are around each other or commenting online as we might be stuck doing during the current wave of COVID. But spreading the news and the knowledge that we have with the intention that the way in which we do this comes from our heart with a sense of empathy for others. Did I just say others? With a sense of empathy for our whole humanity of which we are a part. That we might live up to the resolutions we wrote down, that we might live up to the commitments we made in January 2021 to make sure things would be better for the vote, to remember that Black Lives Matter, to remember the prejudice that is still inherent in our systems needs to be dismantled. To remember that we go about this in a spiritual grounding in ways that help us live into the future we wish to see, to be that future we wish to see, to be engaged, to have a weekend on instead of off. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in on this message. Thank you to our choir for showing up. Thank you to our song interpreters for the beauty and the wonder of what we can pull off when the weather doesn't want us to. Let us remember that beauty and joy can come out of our interactions, that love and compassion are here for all of us. Thank you all for being part of this intent for a grand future. In that spirit, I ask that we join in closing hymn number 138, These Things Shall Be. And maybe they shall be because our intentions are lived.
Free
Our closing words are a prayerful word from the Reverend Kathleen Rollins, who served Unitarian Universalist congregations since 1993. Spirit of justice, God who befriends those who stand upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone, we are grateful to have been together this morning. May we especially remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not only him, for there are thousands of unnamed people who put their bodies and lives on the line so that all may be free. And yet freedom comes at a cost, and we know that racism and homophobia, ageism, ableism, sexism, and classism, all of these often unacknowledged realities prevent us from fully knowing one another, from creating the beloved community, spoken of prophets and ordinary persons alike. May the work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. continue to eradicate injustice wherever and whenever we encounter it. May we continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even if we are afraid of our words or afraid that they will not be heard or welcomed. May the spirit of Dr. King continue to flow through our daily living. May we have the courage of Dr. King as we continue to stand up for justice, reconciliation, and truth, despite challenge and controversy. Dr. King went up to the mountaintop. He saw the promised land, and he reassured us that we will get there one day. May that be no paradisial dream, but a reality in our own time. May it be so. Amen. Blessed be.
I'm not now, I just have my moments. I get. Should we go this way? And I said, that would be lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.